Hi, I'm Talia Swartz, and I'm going to talk to you about MD-PhD applications in the time of COVID-19. And this is through the Communications Committee of the MD-PhD section of the Group of Research, Education, and Training at the AAMC. This comes from a combination of webinars from Dr. Jose Cavazos, who's Assistant Dean and Director at the South Texas Medical Scientist Training Program, and he's a physician scientist, professor of neurology, neuroscience, and physiology. He's also chair-elect of the AAMC MD-PhD section and chair-elect of the National Association of MD-PhD Programs. And I'm Talia Swartz. I'm Associate Director of the Icahn School of Medicine at Mount Sinai Medical Scientist Training Program. I'm a physician scientist also, and I'm Assistant Professor of Medicine and Infectious Diseases, and I'm on the Communications Committee for the AAMC MD-PhD section. So as you know, the COVID-19 pandemic has created monumental challenges in the world around us, and this translates to healthcare, biomedical science, and education. And surely for you, as future physician scientists, this is a really exciting and important time because there's never been a more important need for physician scientists to be innovating when there are so many outstanding questions. So we're really excited to have you, and we need you to work on this front. And I'm sure that you're very excited, but also a bit trepidatious. And you may be asking the question for applicants in this upcoming MD-PhD admission cycle, what does this mean for you? So I hope to be able to answer that in the next few minutes. So let's go over the elements of a successful MD-PhD application. And I want to emphasize that holistic review is very important. MD-PhD programs around the country are looking to recruit diverse classes with people who come from all different backgrounds and who contribute to problem solving in biomedicine. So for that reason, holistic review takes into account all of these different factors. So first of all, applicants should be able to show integrity and maturity. That means creativity, having aptitude for big questions in biomedical research, having demonstrated resilience and collaboration. And this is through your personal statements, through letters of recommendation about you, and through your interview. Productive research experiences, I'll talk about this on the next slide. This is the single most important component because MD-PhD applicants need to have shown commitment to sustained research experience. The MD-PhD essay, so why MD-PhD? Why is it that these 2 degrees are critical for your career development? Letters of recommendation from research mentors should be able to attest to your sustained commitment and your independence on the project. It's important that you've been involved in one or multiple different projects where you've really had intellectual input and have driven the project forward. Academic record, including GPA and MCAT, is important to be able to demonstrate that you are going to be able to be successful in both medical school and graduate school. Experience in caring for others through either clinical exposures like shadowing or service through clinical volunteering is very important to be able to show your commitment to clinical medicine as a career as a physician. Extracurricular activities and life experience is really important. We want to see interesting people and we want to hear about all the interesting things that you've done. And then finally, the interviews where this all comes to life. And so the interview is an opportunity for you to bring the sort of one-dimensional experience on the applications, bring that to life in your interactions with faculty and students at different programs, and then also to be able to learn about the programs at the same time. So what constitutes a substantive research experience? It's enough research experience to understand what you're getting into. That can mean different things for different people, depending on where they're coming from. So it can mean multiple summer projects. It can mean undergraduate research that culminated in a senior research thesis or not, or it can be 1 or more years pursuing research as an after your undergrad degree, such as in a post-bac program. Most important is that during these experiences, you become familiar with testing hypotheses and that you are the primary driver of these projects. It's great if you've been able to present this work. It's great if you've been able to publish this work, but these are not requirements. Mostly the idea is the depth of the research that you're able to describe and the contributions that you have personally made to it. So the good news. This cycle, there are some changes, but overall, the idea is that a strong MD-PhD application is not built overnight. And this is something that you have likely been working on for years and years over your contributions to research, your clinical exposures, your academics, who you are as a person, and therefore a 3-month hiatus is not going to negate those years of experience. Now, we understand that there have been changes in scheduling and unanticipated events, but that's all going to be considered in the application process and should not make you anxious about diminishing your strength as a candidate. The second thing is MD-PhD programs are working together to be flexible. So program directors around the country are having regular dialogue about what the COVID pandemic means for applicants, and programs are working to develop ways to accommodate applicant needs. And so if there's something that you specifically feel that you need to communicate to programs, please do that, because program directors are very interested to understand the needs of the applicants. And then finally, the MD-PhD application review is holistic, as I mentioned before. And so program directors are looking for overall potential for success as a physician scientist. And that means that it's very important for you to be able to convey your interest and passion and all of the things that you have done that have contributed to your desire to pursue a career as a physician scientist. So going back to this list, let's review how this season might impact that. Overall, as I mentioned before, the holistic review stands. That applicants are still going to need to show integrity and maturity. Applicants are still going to need to have contributed to substantive research experiences. Now, it's certainly possible that some of that may have been cut short. Some of the experiences that you were planning on doing recently may have been limited or modified because of access to labs that were closed. You may have been planning on presenting work at a conference that was canceled. All of that is completely understandable, and you wanted to explain that on your application. There will be an opportunity to say, how has COVID-19 impacted on your training? And then you can explain that here. The MD-PhD essay, why MD-PhD, should be the same. It's possible that perhaps during this pandemic, you may have had experiences that have improved on your desire to pursue training, and this is a good opportunity to explain that. Letters from research mentors should stand. The possible extenuating circumstances might be if a mentor is sick or unavailable to write a letter, in which case you could get a letter from a senior member of the laboratory and explain the circumstances both in the letter and in your application where you're describing special needs or accommodations due to COVID-19. Academic record, GPA and MCAT, all understandable. If you had a tough semester or if you haven't been able to take the MCAT yet, that is completely understandable. The general rule of thumb is that applicants will be considered with a pending MCAT score, but it's unlikely that an offer of admission will be offered without the MCAT score. So the recommendation is to take the exam by August, the latest early September, in order to allow for the 4 to 6 week score reporting. If there's some specific question about your specific situation, feel free to reach out to programs to ask. Experience in caring for others is something that likely has been long-standing and shouldn't be something that was just happening recently, but certainly if things that were anticipated to happen were cut short, you can take the opportunity to explain that. And then extracurricular activities and life experiences are things that have been going on for a long time. And so certainly it's possible that things have been modified during this time, but you can certainly take the time to talk about what you were planning on doing, even if it wasn't possible. And then interviews. So this is the part that is probably going to change the most, because the majority of programs are going to be offering virtual interviews. And that's going to create challenges both in you being able to explain yourself and talk about who you are and what you bring to the table. And it's also going to be challenging for you to learn about the program and decide whether it's a good fit. So I'm going to give you 5 tips on how to improve your experience for MD-PhD virtual interviews. There are 4 here and then 1 big one to follow. So first of all, you want to find a strong Wi-Fi connection. Find a location where you're going to have reliable connection for a sustained period of time. And these Zoom interviews or other virtual platforms require a large amount of bandwidth, so it's important that you have a consistent Wi-Fi connection. Test out the equipment. So preload the software on your device and test it out before. Make sure the microphone works, make sure that the camera works. Try to close any unnecessary applications to optimize the performance at the conference. Dress professionally. So just because you're not there in real life doesn't mean that you don't want to look professional. So wear the same thing that you would otherwise wear in person, and also avoid any busy patterns that can come across as distracting on the camera. Use strong lighting. Really important that the interview can see you, and then avoid bright light sources that are coming from behind you that can cast shadows and throw you into a backlit situation. Then the last one, the most important one, is be passionate about a career as a physician scientist. So no matter what the circumstances of your interview, whether in person or virtual, the goal is for you to convey your passion and potential as a physician scientist. And this will include describing your prior experience as a scientist, your capacity for empathy with the human condition, and your ability to effectively communicate these ideas. So that's going to be important on any type of interview, and hopefully you'll be able to do it through this modified medium. A little bit about the timeline. So in the winter, spring, you have been preparing this exceptional application and you're preparing to apply in summer of 2020. Interviews will be happening in fall of 2020 and acceptances will be sent out over the course of the winter of 2020-2021. How has this process changed given COVID-19? There will likely be delays in the deadlines, but the recommendation is if you can get your materials in as soon as possible, it's always to your advantage. The earlier that your application is complete, the earlier you can start to be considered for interviews. Individual programs will have changes in this, so I encourage you to reach out to clarify how the timing may have been modified. Now, important is that not only are you being evaluated, but you want to evaluate MD-PhD programs. So what should you look for in an MD-PhD program? You're going to want to ask questions about the research and academic environment. You're going to want to know about the students, what kind of activities are happening, what kind of professional development and community involvement activities are happening. This is something you can ask the students directly. You want to know what alumni go on to pursue and where they end up, how they do in their match and beyond. Is the location a place that you could see yourself spending the next 8 years? That's going to be a little harder to assess on these virtual interviews and will be a reason why you're going to want to do second visits in the spring, hopefully, when things will ease up a bit. But talking to people, particularly students who came from geographically distinct areas and might have been on the fence, it's important to ask them what their experiences were like and how they feel now. And then a sense of belonging or good fit. This is a question to ask lots and lots of different people, both faculty, students, program leadership, about what they value and whether it looks like you're going to be somebody who will fit in with that environment. I'm going to close with providing you with some resources. Please direct your attention to the AAMC Fee Assistance Program, which has been updated in COVID-19 era. And this is important because if you qualify, you may be able to defray some of the cost of MCAT or AMCAS applications. These websites listed here, the AAMC and the NIH.gov training website, are great resources for the general MD-PhD application process and pipeline. And then I encourage you to reach out to mentors, directors, and lab heads, professors, department chairs, MD-PhD students, graduate students, career advising offices, and then program directors who are all going to be able to provide different perspectives and a wealth of knowledge on the MD-PhD training process. AAMC Pre-Med has a great Twitter and Facebook social media presence, and they're great to follow. And then find other physician scientists on social media. I very much recommend Twitter is a great resource for both keeping up with literature and career networking. You can follow me on Twitter. I'm Talia Swartz, and you'll find all different people at different phases of training who are really excited to share their experience. So in closing, I'd like to wish you good luck. We're so excited for you on this pathway. That is so important. And we're looking forward to meeting you both in person and virtually, and hope that you have a really rich experience this upcoming year. Good luck.